Big news this week, new Range Rover. They don't come along very often, and we're very fortunate to have one of the very earliest Range Rovers just standing behind us now. It doesn't even have a Range Rover badge on the front. Now, Graham Hunt is going to tell us why. Why is that, Graham? Why no Range Rover badge?
It's a pre-production prototype, and as such, Land Rover were using these cars on the public highway, but they didn't want anybody to know about their latest new model, which it was at the time, a brand new thought on design for a four-wheel drive off-road car. So they called them a Velar, which stands for two things potentially. It could be V8 Land Rover, or it's the Italian Velare, which means to cover or to veil, which is what they were actually doing with the car. They were running it undercover, as you like.
Okay. And the inside of it is vinyl. It's very sparse, very utilitarian, classic design and classic shape. We've now got used to a very luxurious, very, very expensive Range Rover. What sort of market were they aiming for when they built this very simple car, but it's very, very classic car that we like so much?
They were after everybody that they could find. Landed gentry with estates, farmers, people in central metropolitan areas, businessmen, and the fact that it was all covered in plastic inside, the floors and the central tunnel, actually in its day was a bit of a step up, because all normal off-road cars and Land Rovers would have had no carpets and it would have just been a painted metal floor. And
nowadays the Range Rover is a over £100,000 vehicle. What car would be the equivalent of that price-wise, going back to 1970? What would it be an E-Type or something like that?
Yeah, well, this in 1970 was £2,000, and I think a new Rolls-Royce was about £10,000. Mm-hmm. So it was 20% of a Rolls-Royce, which today is £250,000. That would make it, in today's money, maybe 50,000.
It makes you wonder whether they would have sold so many then, but times were different, of course.
Completely, yes, completely. But it was sold out. You know, when the car was launched in September 1970 and you went into a shop to buy one, you'd have to wait a year to get it.
And as a classic nowadays, there's quite a cult following for them, because everybody thinks they do look so good. What's it like to run as a classic car? Something you could drive every day?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I do. I live in central London and we use them on a very regular basis, and they still do exactly what it said on the tin then. You know, nice V8 engine, easy gearbox, good brakes, sits up nice and high, you can see where you're going, and it doesn't have the luxuries of modern day technology with airbags and ABS, but it worked in 1970. There's no reason for it not to work today.
Well, we're just about to drive it, so let's see what it's like. I can't wait. So we're now behind the wheel. It feels remarkably good condition, and it's quite extraordinary considering it's 40 years ago since this was built. What differences would this car have with one of the production cars that came out just a few months later?
Probably remarkably few from the very early cars, but they did change the differentials on both axles for the production cars, because these ones are very slightly different. Probably, I'm not sure, but may well be made within the factory specifically for the job, as opposed to being productionized units. And of course all the cars were put together by hand, so that the panel fit is not that which you'd find on the production cars, which came through a little bit later.
Of course, one of the great things about the Range Rover is the driving position, which I think it must be one of the first cars to have introduced that to the general world of motoring. I wonder what people thought at the time of driving a car that was so high up and has such good view.
I think it was a revelation, because, as you say, you could see over hedgerows and see what's coming round the corner. And in London, you can see ahead of you and you can see which lanes are going to be clear and which aren't, so you can nip through the traffic really easily.
That was incredible. 40-year-old design, one of the world's iconic design images. Drives wonderfully. I can't wait to drive the new one. See you in a few weeks' time for that.